Hello everyone, my name is Jeremy. First I would just like to thank Abby and Emily for having me and allowing me to do this. So yes, we'll be talking about Parasite today and parasite cleansing, and we'll be tying it into some old spiritual traditions and trying to kind of blend the physical and the spiritual a little bit here. So I want to start out by talking about this idea that we see echoed throughout old traditions of the living word, where our voice and our words have this sort of presence. And in alchemy, in Indian alchemy, this would be called mercury, the prana, the breath of life, the vitality, So, and the reason I'm saying this is because I originally had a presentation, or a PowerPoint, but they believe that writing things down and making it concrete kind of remove the flexibility and the elasticity of what you were saying, and kind of remove the soul from it, sort of. So I just wanted this to be kind of a real-time novel creation just done right now. So yeah, we see this idea of the living word echoed throughout animism and shamanism, some of the oldest traditions, the first spiritual traditions, right, where they think that everything around us is conscious and sentient and responsive. So yes, this idea that we're speaking things into existence, this goes back to the old, the Hebrew traditions and everything with like abracadabra, I create as I speak, So, yeah, and I think what we see today with how many people are kind of flocking to these sort of ideals and realizing that these things have some sort of merit compared to how slandered they've been for so long. When we see the rise of how people are returning to the organic and the natural, I think we're also seeing this dichotomy of what is rising up of this thing called artificial intelligence. And I think that right now, it's like a split, it's like a crossroads, where people are returning to this kind of information, or it's some sort of artificial dystopia. So, but yeah, how I'm here to talk about parasites. Basically, 4 or 5 years ago, I have a very brief background in STEM classes. So I was always interested in biochemistry, horticulture, these kinds of things. And in 2020, I was alerted by kind of a fervorous post online about this idea of rampant parasite infections being undiagnosed in the United States. And at first I was kind of I don't know. But he was specifically talking about this one organism, which is called Candida, Candida albicans. It's actually a necessary GI microbe, but with what's going on today with the overprescription of antibiotics and our diets and all the toxins in the environment, our GI microbes are thrown completely askew right now. And something like Candida has a chance to just completely take over. And like I said, it's a necessary GI microbe, but it becomes parasitic when there's an overgrowth. So the antibiotics are knocking down our good microbes, Candida's taking over. This is what's leading to a lot of the sugar cravings, the carb cravings, the late night wanting the breads and the pastas and all these things, which are fine, but Candida can kind of it's releasing chemicals actually that make you crave these things, so it's not even your fault, But let's see, and then so yeah, there's Candida, and then also what it does is Candida starts to sort of ball up, and it creates a barrier in your small intestine. So your large intestine is doing all the work to break this food down, right? You're putting all this energy in to break this food down. It gets down to the small intestine, and all of a sudden you have this blanket of Candida coating what you're supposed to be absorbing, and it's stealing it from you. So this is at least the chronic fatigue that a lot of people have, and then you couple this in with adrenal fatigue from too much caffeine and things, So these things are kind of going hand in hand to create this perfect storm that's not really quite being talked about, but now it's sort of, people are talking about it a little bit more. So yeah, but basically I started growing a plant called mugwort. It's in the genus Artemisia. These are famous plants for their antiparasitic effects. This would be like wormwood or sweet Annie, plants like this. Let's see. But yeah, so now I've been looking into herbalism, mycology, and things like this for about 5 years now. So I'll just give a little background on me. But and this is only one facet of a much broader discussion that comes down to, community gardening and having nutritious food available to us right here locally, not having to go somewhere that has food that's been grown who knows how far away, shipped here, going through all these processes. We can start going through the process right now to create local healthy foods that support our GI tract and remineralize the body and all these things. So yeah, let's see here. So yes, when we're talking about parasites, we are talking about, like I said, Candida albicans, which is probably the most prominent. But right now, there are a lot of what are called helminths, which is like the worms you've probably heard of, like flukes and tapeworms and like all these gross things, roundworms, flatworms. And you may be wondering why you're hearing this from me instead of like a medical doctor, you know. And I'm not here to say that your doctor is part of some nefarious scheme, but I'm saying that there is a system in place who good, intelligent people have tried to contribute to because they're trying out of the best of their hearts to help people. And it turns out that, you know, some of this stuff isn't really adding up. So, you know, you can try, go talk to your doctor and ask them what they think about the possibility of a parasite infection. And if they tell you the tired, racist stereotype that, oh, that only happens in third world countries, then we might be onto something here, you know what I mean? It's like a conditioning almost. Oh, you don't have to worry about that, it's not happening here. But in other countries, they do parasite cleanses multiple times a year. So you think about these parasites are ubiquitous in mammals, right? So the parasites that are infecting your cats, your dogs, your livestock are the same ones that are gonna get you. And how often are we treating livestock? Twice a year, right? Cats, dogs, they have to get yearly wormings, and we're right around them all the time. So like, the likelihood of contracting something over all this time it's up there, you know? And then if you look at like just the kind of mass movement towards like these, like I was saying, the carbs and the sweets and the sugars and things, like it's just kind of a perfect storm, and you have to wonder how did this start happening? But yeah, so we're talking about the helminths, like I said, Candida, and then also we're talking about some protozoa, like you've probably heard of toxoplasmosa, or toxoplasma, which leads to toxoplasmosis in the cats, Giardia, just some different things. So when we're talking about getting rid of these parasites, right, what are some things that you can do? Well, there are cleanses that you can go through. There are 3 that I'll talk about. But before this, we have to make sure that the body's ready. We have to take about 2 weeks or so. It could be different depending on your metabolism and all these things. But, you know, 10 days to 2 weeks to hydrate and remineralize, okay, because we need the water flowing. We need the fluid of life, you know. With high quality sea salts, something like shilajit, which is what I have right here. This is a mineral-rich, enzyme-rich, concentrated sap from forest that spews out of the Himalayas. It's really incredible stuff. You may have heard of it. It's kind of becoming famous now. But shilajit, high-quality sea salts, because when we go back to alchemy and we look, the salt, alchemy is all about mercury, the universal spirit, sulfur, the sulfur, our soul, and then the salt is the physical body. So we can nourish, we can begin to bring the body back in line just with these sea salts, with 80 to 85 minerals. If you get the right ones, they even still have some of the good microbial life from the ocean. So let's use the salts and the shilajit to remineralize, rehydrate, and then the other thing that you'll hear about when you start doing parasite cleanses is this idea of opening the drainage pathways. So, you know, your skin sweats, you have bowel movements, you have your kidneys and your liver, and then you also have this one critical thing that I'll get in depth in here in a moment, the lymphatic system, which people are kind of talking about now, but it's been overlooked. It's absolutely crucial for the immune system and for just detoxifying the body in general. Excuse me. So, yes. So opening the drainage pathways, right? Your adrenal glands are directly connected to your pituitary gland, right? This is part of the autonomic nervous system. Something happens and you can't help it, your pituitary gland, boop, sends a signal to the adrenals, and the adrenals stimulate the kidneys. But like I mentioned earlier, lots of people are having this thing called adrenal fatigue from too much caffeine, not getting enough sleep, just too fast of a lifestyle. So if your adrenals are off, they're like little spark plugs for the kidneys. I don't know too much about cars, so that might not be the right analogy, but they're electrifying the kidneys through these hormones that they release, like cortisol and HGH and these things. So We have to get the adrenals online with herbs like ashwagandha and astragalus root. And then licorice root is good, but you can't use it if you have high blood pressure. So there's means of getting the adrenals going, and then we have to make sure that the kidneys are okay. Because if our kidneys are backed up and gunked up, once the adrenaline, or once the kidneys stimulate, once the adrenal glands stimulate the kidneys, we need to make sure that they're filtering properly and getting everything moving. So what we can do for the kidneys are stinging nettle is a big one, lots of minerals, and then also supports the kidney. Juniper berries are a big one, and then also parsley, just the herb parsley. So yeah, once we have the adrenals and the kidneys good, the reason we have to get them online first before we start doing this is because of the lymphatic system. And this lymphatic system it's been likened to like the sewage system of the body, kind of. So as your blood is being exchanged from arteries to the veins and the capillaries, there's little holes in the capillaries, and the arteries are under pressure. So through these little holes, blood plasma, it's not full blood because it doesn't have like white blood cells and these things. It's just plasma with some proteins in it. And this is what's nourishing the cells, right? The blood nourishes the cells throughout the body. So it's leaking out of the capillaries into this interstitial space. And it would help if I could have like drawn this, but it leaks out of the capillaries, and this is what the lymph is. Lymph is just this purified blood plasma with some proteins. So the lymph is collecting in the interstitial spaces. And what it does then is you have different vessels that are lymph vessels. And they're like a one-way highway. It's like a valve. When too much lymph builds up in between the cells, it starts pushing through this one-way valve, and then the vessels become full of lymph. And you have them all throughout your body. You know, like you're familiar with the doctors feeling you right here for your lymph nodes, because when they swell up, it's a sign of infection, because what the lymph is doing is it's coursing all throughout your body. Anywhere your blood is flowing, there's lymph being squeezed out of those capillaries. And that purified plasma is able to sweep through and pick up fragments of virus DNA, bacteria, molds, all these bad things. It's like the sewer system. It's sweeping through, all right? And then it's bringing everything up to your lymph nodes. And here is where you have T cells and B cells, which are kinds of macrophages or white blood cells. So T cells are made in the thalamus, maybe the thyroid, one of those two. B cells are made in the bone marrow. But you have lots of them in your lymph and your lymph nodes because you're bringing all these bad things up to the lymph. You're diagnosing what's going on. You're destroying it. Then the lymph, along with the spleen, is kind of pushing the lymph nodes, are giving them back to the kidneys, and then they're excreted through the urine. So we have a completely natural detoxification system built right in, and it doesn't get talked about. But I say all this just because we have to make sure that the lymph is moving. Otherwise, all of the things that we're getting rid of with these parasites, because what happens is when you kill Candida, it starts giving off all these compounds. Like one of them is, I can't remember the name of it, but it's related to ethanol, alcohol, and excuse me. It's like thousands of times stronger. So when you do a parasite cleanse, there are a lot of symptoms that rise up from taking the medicine because they're called die-off symptoms, or they're called Herxheimer reactions. It's right in the literature, you can look it up. But you take them and they start giving off like these toxic proteins. They start giving off this compound called candidialysin. They start giving off that ethanol compound, and it starts making you feel kind of tired and groggy and sick. It doesn't feel good. So a lot of people will start a parasite cleanse, and they knock it off right away because it makes them uncomfortable. So what you have to do is take a binder, which is something like you might have heard people talk about, like zeolite or bentonite clay or diatomaceous earth. These sort of things. As you kill the candida or you kill these helminths, these worms, this binder will course through and mop up all of these things that otherwise would make you tired and sick. Or activated charcoal is a big one that you might have heard of. So, yes, we have to, let's see. Oh yes, another thing I want to talk about. So, one thing that these parasites are doing is throwing our body out of what's called homeostasis, which is our attempt to maintain a consistent temperature, pH, pressure all throughout our body. So these guys can actually, like I was saying, the candida can release compounds that makes you hungry. It can make you irritable when you don't eat. And some of the helminths or the worms can actually, I don't know exactly what they're doing, but it's somehow they're influencing the serotonin pathways, which influences hunger. So like, they're completely throwing you out of whack with everything you're trying to do in terms of, because remember, what people are realizing about the GI now is, this is where all of your serotonin is made. 90% of your serotonin, your happy molecule, is made here in the GI. So when we have these parasites using it to their advantage and all these things, you're getting robbed, and this is leading to a lot of the depression, the anxiety. So like a lot of times people do these cleanses and they can't believe just how it completely changes their life. It's like their energy, their mood levels, concentration, all of these things. But yeah, so in an effort to get back into homeostasis, one thing that we can do, and here I want to harken back to like alchemy and this idea of these things that have been lost to us, right? When we ground ourselves to the earth, right, we have a chakra system, and there's a toroidal field of energy swirling up and out from us. You know, a toroid is a shape from geometry that looks like a donut. There's a lot of talk about this shape now, but basically, this toroidal magnetism is echoed throughout the universe. This is at the core of the universe. This is in the earth. This is in us. This is in our atoms. This is when they say as above, so below, like a fractal. Like the entire image is mirrored every time you zoom in. This is like the Dogon of Mali, of Northern Africa. They knew that if you were to keep zooming into your cells, you would see the entire universe. Because this entire thing is like some sort of light matrix that's a fractal at every level down. So, what I was saying is, when we ground to the Earth's magnetism rises up. And I'm talking about grounding like not having any shoes on. Magnetism from the Earth rising up through the root chakra. Electricity down from the sun. The sun is giving photons and electricity. You can absorb it right through your pineal gland. This is an antenna. So especially right when the sun comes up and right when the sun goes down. Those 30 minutes before and after, that light helps you stimulate vitamin D. It helps you stimulate a couple of other vitamins that I can't really remember, but it's also regulating your circadian rhythm. So like people knew this, right? It's all about the light, right? And then we talk about these old, like the esoteric traditions and the mystery schools, they're always talking about the light. Like, why are they always talking about the light and the Egyptians and Ra? And then we realize the pineal gland, right? The Vedics called it the third eye. And then we find out that it literally has photoreceptors. So how did all these people know this? And how is it that when you look at the sun and you absorb it, it's like absorbing information straight from the ether? But what I'm saying about this is that is one thing that can get us back in line. When we ground to the earth and simultaneously sun gaze, electricity swirling down through the crown, magnetism swirling up through the roots, this is the torus. This is the toroid right here. You're mimicking all of creation right there. So that is one way that, because there's a lot of talk about like frequency and vibration and things like this, right? So when you're doing that, this is not a frequency that the parasites like. They don't like the sun and they don't like the magnetism of the earth. Like, they're the antithesis to this. And I kind of want to mention this idea of as above, so below, right, with the parasites. They're inside of us, but remember when I mentioned artificial intelligence? This is a sort of macro worldly parasite that has infested and infected the lands. We see how it's sweeping over, you know, like all the ChatGPT and the Matthew McConaughey commercials and all this stuff, you know, like it's taking over all your business, run it off AI, like all this stuff. Like, it's not an accident that people are realizing this stuff is true and it was hidden and slandered. And now there's this whole other branch of, you know, let's merge with the machine. Like something weird is going on. But yeah, artificial intelligence has no power here. It has no power in the Illinois Valley and has no power in the world. So everything's good. Yes. So when we come to, and I apologize, how much time do I have? I wasn't looking. Oh, I can look.
19 minutes.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much. So, yes, when we get into the treatments, right? I will mention the last thing that I would do first, and then we'll ascend up. So this is the only time, you know, I'm very familiar with herbalism and mycology, these things. this is the only class of compounds that I would recommend as pharmaceuticals. So you may have heard of like ivermectin is a big buzzword. So there's also fenbendazole, albendazole. So, ivermectin, I don't want to get too political here. He literally won a Nobel not Peace Prize, but a Nobel Prize in medicine. Like, it's been used in humans forever. Ivermectin and fenbendazole together can take out pretty much all species of flukes and tapeworms. You basically, with the pharmaceuticals, you have to mix and match because some of them don't have the action to take out everything. There's not just one pharmaceutical you can take that'll just clear you out. Because the thing about the parasites is, there's the adults, there's the larvae, and there's the eggs. So you might take a medicine that can take out the adults and you're feeling better and you think you're fine, but you need things that take out the eggs too. So like, this is why cloves are big, the spice cloves, not garlic cloves, but garlic cloves are also excellent. But the spice cloves kills parasite eggs, so like it's one of the most famous for, as part of a regimen. But yeah, so I would recommend looking into Dr. Thomas Lodi. He has a cancer research and cancer clinic in Arizona, and he also has great information about pharmaceuticals. So yeah, fenbendazole, ivermectin, praziquantel, albendazole. Then the next thing that I would mention is what you might have heard of called the Rogers Hood, Rogers Apothecary Kit. She's a lady who became infected with parasites and kind of went down this whole rabbit hole of research and figured it all out herself. And she has her own line of tinctures, because like, if you take these things just as in like an herbal tea, they might not be strong enough to get rid of them. But when it's tinctured and it's concentrated in like ethanol and water as an extraction, it's a lot more powerful. So she has a line of tinctures, and I made a post in her group saying that I was speaking here, and I became an affiliate for her company. So I can get the tinctures at a little better price, and they're one of the best on the market because it's got the cloves, the black walnut hull, and one of the species of artemisian, which is the sweet anise and the mugwort that I was talking about. So one of them is those, and then she has one to clear out the heavy metals, because they're also associated with heavy metals. I forgot to mention this earlier. There's a lot of metals coming in from the environment, from agriculture, from the cosmetics, all of these things. So that creates a breeding ground, especially for the worms, I think, but all of them in general. But yeah, so that's another thing. When you kill them off, you got to be ready to bind up those metals too, because they'll make you feel sick. And that just goes back to the binding, like I was talking about earlier, with diatomaceous earth, zeolite, activated charcoal. Also chlorella is a big one, the algae. But yeah, so Mrs. Rogers has the tinctures. Dr. Thomas Lodi has the pharmaceutical regimen. But the last thing that I want to talk to you about is an ancient medicine that has been, it's been blackballed. And some people might think I'm absolutely crazy for even mentioning it. But first I want to talk to you about distillation, right? So the alchemists used to do this to purify their water for their extractions. So when you distill something, you're heating it up, and as it volatilizes, right, as water turns into a gas, you can collect it in another chamber, and then you have purified water. It's distilled water. So you can distill other things too. And one thing that you can distill is the sap from a pine tree. As it comes down, you can put this into a distillation unit, and as you do it, there are volatiles that will come off of this too. It's not water, because this is the sap. The first couple of things that come off as you heat this pine sap are called alpha and beta pinene, which might sound familiar because if you're familiar with cannabis at all, there's a lot of talk about the terpenes, pinene, limonene, what's the other one? Famous one, I can't think of it right now, but these are the same exact terpenes in the pine tree that are in like cannabis. So, and these are the same things that essentially an essential oil is. So when you walk through a pine forest or any sort of forest, these are giving off like literal tons worth of essential oils. So this is an ecotherapy, like grounding to the earth and absorbing the sunlight. When you walk through that forest and breathe deep that forest air, you're breathing in all those essential oils, and they're antibacterial, they're antimicrobial. But the two that I'm talking about from the pine sap are called alpha and beta pinenes. And these guys are so small that they can course throughout your entire body. So a big thing in medicine is being able to cross the blood-brain barrier. there's like a seal of fluid that won't let things through because you don't want things getting to your brain. So it's hard in medicine to get something to cross the blood-brain barrier because it's kind of intuitive, you don't want things going in there. So these alpha and beta pinene are small enough that they're able to get through the blood-brain barrier and clear out brain parasites. So like the toxoplasmosis, this substance that I'm talking about can take care of that. It can't always eradicate it, but it can always help. I mean, you can have worms get to your brain. It's weird to talk about, I don't want to mention things like that, but turpentine can, oops, I wasn't supposed to mention it yet, but yeah. This thing can help out with that. And of course, what I'm talking about is 100% pure gum spirits of turpentine. This is not hardware turpentine. That's rectified turpentine, which has been processed. This is 100% pure gum spirits of turpentine in a glass bottle, because it's a solvent and you don't want it in something plastic. But this stuff, this has been used to treat parasites forever, for so long. And it's always been married with this other thing known as castor oil. So turpentine and castor oil mixed together, good for your face, anti-aging. But the turpentine mainly, what it does is it's small enough to course throughout your body, go through all the tissues, all the organs, get rid of everything. It gets rid of all parasites at all stages and their eggs. But there's an entire protocol you need to go through because it is very powerful. It is very potent. You need to start very small and work your way up. You have to make sure that you're using a binder, like I was discussing, because it is the #1 killer of candida. So when you take the turpentine, if you don't take the turpentine and you don't take a binder, like it'll make you very tired, very groggy, not feel very good. But yeah, and like I said, you can look back in the literature for hundreds of years, and they always go together. Because turpentine seems to have some sort of propensity for cell membranes. So for us, it helps us, because we have semi-permeable membranes in our cells, and the turpentine seems to sort of jump into the membrane and help it make it more permeable for minerals and things like this. I don't necessarily know that it makes it more permeable for minerals, but I do know that it goes into the membrane and it's helping in some way. So, but for something like a yeast or candida, it's going into their membranes and disrupting it and making it so that they're getting things in there that they don't want. So turpentine completely clears out the candida, but you have to make sure that you're ready by, like I was talking about, having your drainage pathways ready and then being prepared with a binder. So, yeah, that's turpentine and castor oil. And then you would want to take, like activated charcoal or something with that. So let's see. I've been kind of mangling my cards up here. Okay, yes, and then also, another thing I want to talk about is fasting. So these guys, like I said, they're releasing chemistry to make us want to eat, and then they're leeching off of us. So by fasting, we begin to starve them, especially the candida and some of the worms, because there are bad things like flukes and stuff like this, and they can we won't even talk about it. But but as far as the helminths and the candida, you can starve them very easily by fasting. So especially fasting with what I was talking about, fasting, grounding, sun gazing, boom. Then just the way that would set you up for a parasite cleanse to be potentiated and have more of a synergistic effect, set you up great. So fasting, so when we fast, we begin to change our chemistry too, right? 8 to 12 hours, not producing as much glucose or glycogen, start to release hormones like HGH and cortisol and things like this to bring our glucose levels back up because we need this energy. And after 24 hours or so, we start going through what's called autophagy, where your cells start cleaning themselves out and basically it starts eating itself. But here's the thing, your body starts eating itself in a way, but it's clearing out like old cellular debris and all this stuff that we don't need. These bad proteins that are in the brain, it causes brain fog and all this. So, and then after 48 hours, you begin to produce like 400 to 500% more HGH, which is like, it's a big deal to completely shift your biochemistry like that, because then you become more efficient and more prone to being able to function off of these things called ketones that your liver starts to produce. So you've heard of the ketogenic diet and all of this. So, yeah. It's those fats from the keto, it does kill a lot of things. 30 minutes? Okay. So yeah, I'll probably just say a couple more things here and then just kind of open it up to question and answer. But yeah, like I had said, this is one element of a much broader discussion of how communities have been ripped apart by this artificial system, how access to nutrient-dense and GI-supporting foods it's so difficult to find them. Yeah, I'm kind of fumbling here, but yeah, so what we can do as a community is start to try to set up these networks of like decentralized gardening, right? Like if you have space to grow this and I have space to grow this and we all grow it and share at the end, right? So we have local, mineral-rich, healthy, GI-supporting foods, which is one of the big parts of this. And then we're talking about foraging. So another presentation I could give is about like local, edible, and medicinal mushrooms. So we're talking turkey tail, chicken of the woods, and actually I meant to bring it, but I have like a chicken of the woods extract that I've been making. But reishi, all these things. So we have all this forest, all these incredible fungi, and they support our system so much. Because here's the thing, these fungi have evolved out in the forests. We share 50% of our genome with the fungi kingdom. We're more closely related to fungi than any other kingdom. So half of our DNA is the same as theirs. And they've been spending all of this time in the forest coming up with this medicine to fight off viruses and bacteria and all these things. So they have these compounds that are literally like curated for the human body because they're fighting the same viruses that are trying to attack our DNA. So we have this wealth, and then you look at the old traditions, TCM, Ayurveda, all the indigenous medicine from here in North America, like they all knew, like they were all using the mushrooms and the herbs and these things. So yeah, I just want to go back to the power of the word and the living word and in the moment, you know, like just the flow of that elasticity, like speaking, reading, writing, like this is all sort of magic. And when we keep it alive by keeping it fluid and in the moment and like the Druids wouldn't write anything down. Like the great Celtic mystics, they wouldn't write any of it down. You'd have to spend 20 years memorizing everything orally. Because to put it down is to make it concrete and to say, that is that thing, instead of it being this thing, this ethereal mist of a substance. So yeah, that's pretty much all I have. Thank you. So yeah, if anyone has any questions. Oh yeah.
First of all, I could listen to you talk for hours.
Oh,
I love that.
Thank you.
And I completely understand what you mean by the word of mouth and everything, but I want to learn more. So what would you recommend is what I could look up online or books, or how do I, give me more?
Yeah, oh, excuse me. So my friend first thing I'd recommend is my friend has a great spiritual studies course on YouTube. His name is C.G. Dahlin, D-A-H-L-I-N. If you type that into YouTube, you will find, he has dozens of videos, and he has 2 or 3 about this idea of language. One of them is called Dispelling the Spell of Language, because this is the other thing that I didn't mention, like when we spell something, like this is all hearkening back to the old alchemy and the power of language. Incantation, enchantment, chant, all this. There's so much when we go into the etymologies where language is always related to magic.
Like Kabbalah, yeah.
Exactly, yes, yes. The idea of like the Keter descending down from the Godhead. Yeah. And that's why in the Old Testament, in the very beginning, the Word was with God and the Word was God. And the Word moved over the face of the waters, right? It's all hearkening back to this power of language. In the Norse, it's the Well of Erd. Odin sits at the Well of Erd where the flow of language comes right from the base of the Tree of Life. And he's able to impart the power of poetry and speaking onto certain people. And this is also the source of, yeah, I don't know. I was about to go on a tangent, but if I'm in, does anyone else have a question? But I'm sorry, it's C.G. Dahlin.
Does that look great? C.G. Dahlin?
D-A-H-L-I-N.
Yeah, and then a bunch of videos will pop up, and yeah, you'll see them.
Thank you so much.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you. Yeah.
So it's funny that you mentioned that you call like the donut figure. I can't remember the actual name for it.
Yeah, the torus.
Magnetism and electricity. Well, it's funny you mentioned that because I was just looking that up where in electricity that actually creates that field. And it's due to this concept called space-time.
Well, the universe spins in that. That's a universal constant for all energy and life and everything. It applies to all areas of science too.
Yeah, and I think that I looked it up. I actually used AI to look it up.
Yeah.
No, you don't want to know this. What are you doing, Hal?
It's possible that I might contend with AI.
Well, I was using Grok, by the way. Grok
Oh.
3. It's actually, the purpose of it is to understand the universe. So
Nice.
it was a good AI version. But
Yeah.
But yeah, the two concepts, magnetism and energy, actually somehow are connected through this thing called space-time.
Right, and this would be getting into like relativistic physics.
And quantum physics.
Right, and
Is what connects to the quantum energy.
right. So the quantum and relativistic are kind of at odds with one another because the math doesn't line up. When we look at relativity, which is what you're describing, so much of it doesn't add up, and there's a lot of stop gaps in the math, and like this is what 2 or 3 years ago I gave a presentation called Plasma Events, a Cyclical Love Story, talking about this, about the magnetism of the Earth, and what was that thing I just mentioned? So yes, electricity and magnetism are interlocked forever. It's electromagnetism. So as electricity flows, it generates magnetic fields behind it. So what you're discussing here with relativity in this, like when we look at the depths of the universe, we can't explain how there are such pervasive magnetic fields if there's not electricity coursing out through the whole thing. Like, we're seeing this magnetism, where's this coming from? There has to be electricity out there, which puts relativity in a big bind, because it's supposed to be space, right? It's empty. Whereas when we look at this model of plasma physics, which is kind of what my other presentation gets into, and the work of Dr. Anthony Peratt, we start to see that, we can explain the universe strictly with electromagnetism, which goes back to the torus, and so yeah.
The ancients believed in all that.
Exactly. So it's kind of a contention between what's being hammered to us by the modern artificial intelligence system and the rising gnosis of the people that are connected to what has always been going on. That's what I would say. But,
Collective knowledge.
yeah, the collective conscious, just like an oracle or a channel or something. So, yeah. Any other questions?
You did amazing.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So, yeah.